Today, I am sitting down with Kim Tirapelle, the dietitian behind Active Bariatric Nutrition. Through Active Bariatric Nutrition, Kim works one-on-one with bariatric patients to help them live a healthy, active lifestyle post-surgery. After working in bariatrics for 15 years, Kim recognized how little support there was for these individuals when it came to trying to combine traditional bariatric nutrition guidelines while also fueling for training. So she started her private practice, and most recently, Kim has launched her podcast, Active Bariatric Nutrition, as a way to broaden her skill set, attract more clients, and ultimately market her business in a unique and creative way that feels really authentic for her. So today, Kim and I sit down and talk about the art of podcasting. Specifically, we talk about the results that the podcast has had with regards to actually getting paying clients. So if you have been interested in podcasting, or even if you have no interest in creating a podcast, but you want to learn and hear some really practical strategies for marketing yourself in a unique way, then you definitely want to listen to this episode. Let's jump in. Kim, welcome to the podcast. Feel free to say hey to the audience.
Hey, everybody. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you. I feel like that this conversation has been a long time coming. Like I've thought, oh my gosh, I need to have Kim on my podcast. I need to have Kim on my podcast. And then when you started your podcast, I was like, okay, now is the time to have Kim on my podcast. So I want to start off by hearing a little bit more about your dietitian story. So we'll get into the podcasting stuff in a minute, but let's back it up.
Sure.
Give us the Coles notes of how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So, I always say this when I'm talking to like undergrads or interns, that your career path can go in so many different directions, and ultimately every step along the way is beneficial. So I'll just start off by saying I actually went to school to become a teacher, and I had a bachelor's of science degree in kinesiology, and I taught a year of high school health and PE. And basically the last year of my schooling for that, I was like wanting to maybe become a dietitian. And my parents were like, yeah, you're going to go ahead and finish your like 3.5 years out of a 4-year credential. You're going to finish and try it out and see how it goes. So I taught high school health and PE for a year. And I was like, no, it's just not what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I really was interested in nutrition. I had always been a athlete. I was a college athlete as well. And it just was something that thought it was such a great area. And I just didn't know what dietitians do. I didn't even know about it. And I'll tell you a quick story. Literally my junior year at the University of Illinois, I played soccer, and we had a dietitian, and she was based out of a grocery store. And I was always tired at practice. And my coach was like, you need to go see this lady. She'll tell you how to eat. And I was like, okay. So I meet this lady in the grocery store. She is like, yeah, you're way underfueled. Like, what do you mean you skip meals? Like, what are you doing? And basically helped me. And I was like, this is awesome. Didn't really know that there were sports dietitians that like helped athletes. And so that's what kind of piqued my interest initially and got me kind of going on that pathway. So after I basically went back to school again, Cal State Long Beach, got my master's degree in nutritional sciences, and then did my dietetic internship at Fresno State. My first job was, of course, like most dietitians, we were clinical, right? Because we don't know, what else to do when you come out of college. I did clinical, and ironically enough, my very first floor I covered was the bariatric floor. And I helped the patients who had just had surgery, advising them on their post-op diet progression, and just covered that. So I started getting some experience with that. And then I moved into an outpatient wellness program where I worked with employees on nutrition. And from there, I still loved sports nutrition. So I basically showed up at Fresno State, which is a college, Division I college here where I live, and said like, hey, do you need some help with your nutrition in the athletic department? And they were kind of like, sure. What can you do? And I'm like, well, I can help your athletes basically feel better so that they can perform better. And they were like, okay, sounds good. And so like for the first year, I just volunteered. Like I didn't even get paid, and I didn't care because I just thought it was so cool. And so did that for 7 years. And basically at that same time, I earned my credential as a certified specialist in sports dietetics. I taught sports nutrition at Fresno State. I worked for a company. I moved away from the clinical and moved into a company that did work with athletes. And then after about, I think 3 or 4 years of that, they decided to change directions at that company. So I ended up getting a job back at a hospital where it was a bariatric surgical department, and I was the dietitian there for 9.5 years. And that was kind of my main last position. And towards the end of that, I just realized that like I wanted to do more. And what's what I guess I felt personally with limiting in a more hospital position was I just didn't get to work more long term with clients. They come, they would do their surgery, and then they kind of went off into life, and you kind of felt like you didn't get to see them and really work with them and help them on their goals. So I decided about a year ago to leave my full-time position and open up my own business, Active Bariatric Nutrition. And I work one-on-one virtually with clients that have had bariatric surgery and want to basically change their nutrition to reach their new fitness goals. So that's like my life in a nutshell.
Very cool. A lot of that
Yeah.
stuff I actually didn't know. I feel like some of those details around doing sports nutrition at the college, and then that's really cool. I love that you paired all of those things together into what your private practice is now. And so let's talk a little bit more about active bariatric nutrition. How did you get started with that?
Yeah. So, like I said, I would say probably in the last like 2 years of my position, again, I wasn't like unhappy in the position. I just knew that I wanted to, number one, have more flexibility. I have 3 kids and they all play sports and they're all active. And the inflexibility of my clocking in and clocking out just wasn't meeting our needs as a family. And so I was like, to my husband, I'm like, we got to figure something out because I'm not loving this. And I do want to be here for my kids, they're only young ones. So I started kind of looking into what does it take to open up your own private practice. And basically, I essentially started just kind of Googling how to start a practice. And I came across you and I was like, okay, I need to have a business coach who can help me basically save time in learning how to get this started. And I remember you had a freebie of a spreadsheet that was like how to get your business started, this like checklist. And of course, not only did I hire you and work with you, but like we literally went off of that spreadsheet to like get me started, creating an LLC, copy for your website, really nailing your niche and your messaging and marketing things. All of that I had no experience in, zero, right? Because becoming a dietitian, you're in all the science classes and all those things. You're not in any business or marketing classes at all. And so that was my kind of greatest fear, was like, I don't even know where to start. So hiring you was so helpful because it just really saved me a lot of time in knowing where to kind of begin and how to build. So I basically, once I kind of had that help, it basically narrowed in on, okay, now on my side, the dietitian side, what are my services? What do I really want to help clients achieve? How am I going to do that? What platforms am I going to use? That kind of stuff. So that's kind of how it got started. I had a website. I got into some social media. I initially just had Instagram, and that's basically how I got it started.
Cool. And can you remember any of the big sort of mindset challenges or mindset blocks that you had to get through at the very beginning? Sorry, I am going on a bit of a tangent here because I think that that's an important piece, that it's never that easy. And there's always those mindset things that we have to get through. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to be honest. I am someone that I have no problem. I'm like that extroverted introvert. Like I have no problem when I'm around people talking and like just getting out there. And I thought this is going to be easy. Like I'm going to get out there. I'm going to go around and talk to people and tell them I've got a business. Let's do this. And I'm going to start getting clients, right? I'm just going to have this Instagram account and I'm going to put some posts up there when I want. And I'm just going to have clients rolling in. Guess what? It doesn't work like that. And I think you actually told me that. And I was like, oh yeah, no problem. But what I found was, because I thought like, oh, I can speak publicly, it's not a problem. But the issue is I'm just not used to like going out there and being like, hey, work with me. And what I found that really showed my insecurity of like, okay, once they don't just say yes right away, or, you know what I mean? Just like sign up from my Instagram post. It was like, I felt really insecure about myself. And like, I was like, maybe I don't know how to run a business. Like maybe I should just go back to working for someone else and they tell me what to do and I just show up and do my job. And I had total analysis paralysis. I had total imposter syndrome. I mean, like I've listened to all the podcasts on these things because it totally resonated with me and it froze me. And to be really honest with you, pretty much over the summer. So I opened my business in March of 2022. I had left my position in January. So it took a few months to get it going. Opened it in March, got a couple clients right away. And then it was crickets. And I started doubting myself. And so throughout the summer, I just kind of went inside myself and was like, oh gosh,
Mm.
what have I done? And wasn't posting, wasn't like really doing much because I was afraid to put the wrong thing out there. What if I say something? They're all
Mhm.
like, oh, this lady's crazy. And so for me, mentally, it was not knowing like it's okay for it to not be perfect. Like I'm type A, like I think a lot of dietitians are, or maybe it's just me, but I just kind of froze. And ultimately, this podcast, which I know we're going to talk about in a minute, is what got me outside of myself. And I found that my strengths are I feel comfortable talking to people and things like that. And so a podcast for me helped me to get out of that, like, okay, this post didn't go well. And then thinking like, I don't know what I'm talking about. No, it's just because the post didn't go well that day. Who cares? And so
Yeah.
it's really been an evolution for me in a short amount of time to just get out there and post. And now I have all kinds of people commenting and doing all these things. And it's just so refreshing to just be like, yeah, I put this post up. I don't even know if it's good, but we'll see how it goes and learning from it and moving on to the next thing. So it's been a
Wow.
change.
Yeah. What a massive shift to happen just within the span of less than a year, too.
Seriously.
Hey, like
Yes.
honestly, and I really appreciate you sharing that the high and low piece and getting very specific and detailed around that, because I think that there's sometimes a bit of that mismatch between what our expectation is going into a business and what reality ends up being. And no matter how much we try and reinforce the messaging that there's going to be highs and lows, and that's it never resonates until we're in it and we're feeling those highs and
Yes.
lows, and we're feeling months where nothing's happening and nothing's coming in, and in fact it's completely normal, but that's just part of the process. And so what an amazing transformation to have made just in the span of however many months, 8 months. So
Yeah.
let's talk now about the podcast. What
Yeah.
made you decide to launch the podcast?
So again, this stems from that summer of like going inside myself. And my husband was like, I thought you wanted to run this business. Like what's going on? What are you struggling with? And I was like, I don't know what to post. And that's, I know you and I hashed out ideas. And I said to him, I go, I feel inauthentic going on and making these reels where I'm dancing around. Like I do feel kind of dumb doing it. And so then it forced me into like, well, what else is there? I don't like creating like posts with, I think you remember me being like, I don't even know how to do Canva. Like I'm super not creative. Like, there's those people out there that make these beautiful like graphics and like infographics, like not my jam at all. Like I have all the information in my brain. I do not know Canva. I don't like to do pictures. You know what I mean? So it was just like,
Yeah.
okay, so now what? I don't like to do posts. Like, Kim, we have a real problem here. Like, how are people going to know about you? So my husband in like October, just this past October, he was like, why don't you like do this podcast? You like to talk, you do public speaking, like that's not a problem for you. Why don't you try it? And I have listened to lots of other podcasts about the benefits of having a podcast for your business. And you had even said it to me many times. And I was like, babe, I don't even know where to start. Like, how do you start a podcast? So basically, I Googled how to start a podcast, and Buzzsprout, which is basically a host for podcasts, has a podcast on how to begin a podcast. And so him and I listened to it, and my husband is a tech guy. I will say one benefit for me is that my husband is into like the tech stuff. So he was like, easy, let's do this. And I was like, okay. And so basically, I decided to launch the podcast because it was a medium for me that I felt more comfortable with. I felt like I could get people that I know that would come on. Of course, again, that was easier said than done. At first, I was like, oh, I'm going to have all these people. And then it's like, okay, yeah, you have to nail down these actual people and topics and get them to come on. But really, over the summer, just like I said, with the business stagnating, I thought, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot. So my husband helped me kind of get it started. And I guess we can talk kind of about like my process, but it has been hands down the best thing for my business. Absolutely. And I'm so glad I started it. So I'll just kind of say that
Wow.
best thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool. And I think this is just so brilliant. This idea of matching your marketing strategy or your main marketing tactic to your strengths, your personal strengths. And just speaking to the fact that you're like, hey, I hate creating content on
Yes.
Canva. That's not your strength. And so you, and I know you do post on Instagram regularly, but you creating like Canva graphics and posting them on Instagram are not not your thing. And that's okay. And that's, I think, a really important reminder for people that there's never one way to do a business. There's never one way to market a business. And it's about doing a little bit of self-reflection and thinking about, okay, so where are my strengths actually? And what would I enjoy doing? So that's so cool. I love that.
And I'll just say too about the podcast, like, honestly, when I got started, I was just going to do audio. And so another little thing that I kind of changed right out of the gate was another social media kind of page. I wanted to have a YouTube channel, but again, I don't want to just go on there and create these little content like shorts and things. So I was like, can I just upload, like, can I kill two birds with one stone? And if I do a video and audio podcast, I can not only post the video on Instagram and like my TikTok or my YouTube, but also like Facebook. And it went across many mediums. And like I said, the social media stuff isn't really my jam. And so if you can find something that works for you that you can post across multiple mediums with one shot, it's totally helpful and saves a lot of time.
Yeah. And so let's talk about that then. Let's talk about your process. What were the first steps that you took when you actually created your podcast? But then I'd also love to hear about your process in just creating episodes too. And how do you decide on the topic? How do you record those episodes? How do you share them out to people? I'm just curious because honestly, and I know for all of you that are listening to this, you can't see our screen, but like Kim's podcast setup is incredible. And I am fangirling right now about your podcast. And so I know I can learn so much from you. And so I just want to, for my own selfish reasons, I want to hear about your entire process too.
Well, thank you. No, I appreciate you saying that. No, my gosh,
totally.
First, let me share with the audience. Do you know where my studio, let me tell you where my studio is, Krista. Literally, my studio is in the corner of my bedroom. Okay.
Yeah.
So what you're looking at right now, I mean, if you ever go onto my YouTube channel, you can see it. It's the corner of my bedroom. So like I'm staring at my unmade bed right now. Okay. And my treadmill, and no one knows that.
I love it.
They're looking at the corner of my room. So first of all, you could do it anywhere. But no, when we first started looking into like, what do you need for a podcast? Like, equipment, of course. So we got mic, my husband got the camera that we use. And I will say, because he's into this kind of stuff, he ordered some lighting and different things that will basically make for a video purpose podcast. The lighting looks nice and even and balanced. So he was very helpful in that respect. Again, I have zero like knowledge and or interest in that type of stuff. So he was helpful in knowing like what things we need in terms of the equipment. But again, I listened to that How to Start a Podcast on Buzzsprout's podcast, and they went over like the first couple episodes is like, of course, defining your niche and like who you want to target, but then also they go into equipment and platforms. And so that was helpful too, to know what platforms you can host your podcast on, what records your audio, as well as if you're going to do video. I had asked you, if you remember, I messaged you. I'm like, hey, what do you use? And you were like, hey, I use Descript. And they had also spoken about that. So I'll talk a little bit about what platforms I use, but essentially the beginning steps was, what do I need for equipment and where am I going to host and record my podcast and how to distribute it? So that's kind of how I started it. Now, to get my podcast going, how I do it each week is I release it one episode a week. I don't know if that's going to be an ambitious like plan that I'll be able to sustain forever, but that's my current system, is once a week. I basically get ideas from, whether it's from my clients, like when I'm working with them, and I kind of jot down little side notes, like things that I hear commonly that they're struggling with. So remember, I work with bariatric clients who have had surgery and are now changing their nutrition to meet their fitness goals. So I will jot down common struggles, like they don't know what to eat pre-workout. They're not knowing what to eat post-workout. Like, how do they change their bariatric nutrition guidelines to encompass more of those sports nutrition guidelines? Like, where is the struggle there? And so I've been jotting down little notes along the way, and those have helped me to get the ideas going for these initial podcasts. Because again, I didn't know what I was doing. And so I started utilizing those ideas, and then I'll do a little bit more research each week. I basically type up a loose script, so to speak, like kind of the questions that I'm answering in my episode and kind of the points that I want to hit. And then I use the platform Riverside. Riverside will record both video and audio. And so basically the benefit of Riverside is that you can record, like if I want to just do an episode by myself, or if I want to do like you and me, like where I'm interviewing other people, it remote records. What does that mean? Like, because if you record over the internet, there can be like interference and like background noise, and like maybe you just drop the audio altogether. What's cool about Riverside is that it records your audio and my audio at the same time and video. It uploads that to the cloud, and basically it helps with reducing interference and noise and things that come in from the internet. And then when you basically download that back down, it has 2 clean audio, 2 clean videos, or however many people you interviewed, and you can then go into the editing process. So from there, basically, my husband, because again, I will say this, you do not have to do this, but my husband being like an audio tech type of guy, we use Hindenburg Journalist Pro, which basically levels out the audio of each speaker. So like, if I'm like a loud talker, like when I've interviewed gentlemen, like their voice may be more loud than mine. And so it helps to level out the audio and make it really equal. And so then we utilize that audio and we upload that to Descript. And Descript, basically, you can upload video and audio, and you can do the editing there. I make 2 cuts. I have an audio only cut that I put onto Buzzsprout for my audio podcast. And then we make a cut for like YouTube. So it has the video and the audio. And this also allows us to create a hook, which is kind of like an intro. We then can overlay intro music. Then we'll have the main interview, and then we have exiting music that we put at the end. And so we can do that in Descript. And another thing that you taught me was that Descript allows you to create a transcript from your audio, which is great then because you can use that for SEO. And so Descript is really neat that it does that transcript, and you can go in, like, let's say you totally say something weird. And like, I remember in my first episode, I said, and like 80 times, or I say like a lot. And so you can go in there into Descript and just delete it, and it actually takes it out. You can also, if you speak something incorrectly, you can go into Descript and it learns your voice. Like, you give it a little audio test, like profile, and you can actually go in there and take a word out and replace a word, and it puts your own voice in there. So it's kind of cool. And again, I thank you for that because I didn't even know Descript until you told me about it. So, and then after we're done with that, we upload it to Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout's our host. And if you want it to go on different hosts like Apple and Spotify and Google and stuff like that, when you go onto a Buzzsprout, you basically have to subscribe to all these directories, and you can, that way you have your podcast goes on different directories. So it's found across different mediums. So I know that's a lot of steps, but I can honestly tell you guys, I have zero understanding of like any of this when I started. And just through listening to experts like you, Krista, and other folks that have done a podcast, it can be done, and you can just do it on Zoom. I know Audacity is another common one that's free. It doesn't have to be sophisticated to get your voice out there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was awesome. Thank you for that synopsis. That was really cool to hear about your whole process. I love that it's like a you and your husband project together. How
Yes.
fun.
He's really helped.
How
I know.
fun.
And I know.
How
and
cool.
I have to give him props. Yeah. He's really
so
helped.
Cool. So yeah. And so it's interesting because I've actually just started using just Descript to do my, like right now we're doing this over Zoom. Yep. But then what I do is I upload it to Descript, and then I just do all of my editing in Descript. And for anybody who has to ever do any audio or even video editing, Descript is a magical platform. Totally. It's like $40 a month, but it's such an incredible tool. There's just so much you can do with it. You can create Instagram, like you can create, take snippets from your videos and create them into like Instagram posts and reel. Like, it's just amazing. Totally. So cool. Okay. So obviously that's a lot of effort every week that you're putting into your podcast episodes. So let's talk about some of the results.
Yeah. So, and let me just say one thing. I record my podcast, and we do all that kind of like uploading in one day. Yeah. We edit it, and it's really, I know I went through like 8 million steps, it sounds like, but honestly, we can turn, like if I had to record an episode, like, which I did a couple weeks ago, I recorded an episode on Sunday morning, and we had it ready to go because Buzzsprout, you can actually set a time to release it. Yeah. And it was edited and done. And you can, like, if you don't want to do the transcript, we're editing the transcript and that kind of stuff, you don't have to even do that. You can just literally upload it. So it's not as much time if like you're a little like worried that you're like, oh my gosh, all this tech stuff sounds crazy. It's not as sophisticated as it sounds. I mean, it can be if you want it to be. And if you have those types of interests, it can be, but it doesn't have to be. And you can turn it around quickly. Like literally we do sometimes in one day because life happens. Yeah. And I don't have time to do 8 days of editing. You know what I mean? So
Totally.
I just wanted to say that for those of you that are like, oh, this sounds crazy. It's not that bad.
Yeah. And I'm totally in the same boat where, and most of the time, to be totally honest, I'm recording like today, for example, not this episode, because this episode's going to come out next month, but tomorrow's podcast episode, I'm recording today.
Yep. Totally.
Like it is all happening today.
It's happening.
And that's just how it's working for me right now. And I want to get better at pre-planning. It's funny, when I first started the podcast, I feel like I was so much better about like I would batch record and then I would have all of the podcasts sort of mapped out for the month. And this year, for whatever reason, I can't get on top of it. Like it's like every week I'm like, oh, I got to do a podcast episode. Okay, it's Wednesday. Yeah, I have a list of things I'm going to talk about, but it's a whole thing. But I think that's what's cool about podcasting is that it can come together quickly if you need it to. Totally.
And like I was on a live yesterday with another dietitian. We talked about vegan bariatric nutrition. And guess what? I had no idea what I was going to talk about this week on my podcast. And I'm going to basically use my notes that I used to answer her questions yesterday. And as soon as we're done today, I'm going to be recording that. And
so perfect.
You know what I mean? So like we said, kill two birds with one stone. You know, you got to do what you got to do.
Totally. And I think too, the cool thing about a podcast and like, especially publishing something every week is that sometimes there's this like overthinking that goes into the podcast topic where it needs to just be this like revolutionary, huge topic that covers everything about whatever it is that you're talking about. And it doesn't. Like we're doing it every week. You can do a 10-minute podcast episode if you want to, or it can be 30 minutes, or it can be an hour. Like there's just so much flexibility there. And I think that's the great thing about publishing every week is like there's so much opportunity to share and really cover whatever you want to.
Yeah, totally. And I would say like now having interviewed other people, like I don't mind doing a podcast episode by myself, but honestly, I've found that not only is interviewing great for you as the person that's asking the questions, because you don't have to have tons and tons of different notes or research because you're asking them the questions, right? But it allows for this like organic, like authentic discussion that can go in all these different directions it's helpful. And you never know where it's going to take you. And what I've actually found is that the interviews that I do with other people, those episodes have done way better than the ones where I just, soloed it. Yeah. So
totally. I know I found the same thing. And that's something I'm thinking about a lot for next year is just like, again, being better with the whole planning process, because that's the thing when you have a guest, obviously it takes more planning, right? You have to book the guest, you have to come up with the questions, you have to share those with the guest, you have to come up with the time to record. It's a whole thing. Whereas doing the solo episode, it can be done a little bit more on the fly. Yes. But I totally agree that I love the interview episodes because it just ends up being oftentimes a richer conversation and people just listen to those episodes more.
Totally. And I think they can resonate with like back and forth and and sometimes, I don't know, just maybe the different voices and you know what I mean? Just conversations.
It's just be funner.
Entertaining. Yeah,
totally. Okay. So let's go back to the question of the results. What have you seen so far? I know it's early, but what are some of the high level results?
No, so my first episode launched on October 21st. Okay. So like literally whatever, like 2 months ago. And
so it's December, it's mid-December right now. So basically 2 months. Yeah.
So literally at that time I was around like, I think 1,100 followers on Instagram. And just to show you, I'm almost to 2,000 followers as of today. Like and this has all happened in the last 2 months. And yeah, it's crazy. And I can honestly tell you, I have had, first of all, I've gotten all kinds of new discovery calls booked. I have people that are like, I've listened to every single episode. Like, it's like, they're super pumped about it, which is it's just so humbling, but also such a rewarding feeling that like, oh my gosh, there's people that are listening to what I have to say. This is really cool. And a lot of that imposter syndrome that I was feeling because of the mediums that I don't feel comfortable in doing, it made me feel like, okay, maybe I am on the right path. Like maybe this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And this podcasting thing has just opened the door and gotten my business, my voice, whatever, out in front of so many more different people. And not only that, but like I've gotten to be in front of other professionals. So the people that I've interviewed, then they share it in front of their audiences. And so that collaboration has now gotten me in front of their audiences and gain followers that way. And oh, hey, so-and-so said that I should listen to this episode that you talk about exercise programming and strength training. And that brought me to thinking, I need to work with you because you actually get the struggles that I'm going through. And so it has been unbelievable in just getting my business out in front of more people in such a very short amount of time. And so, and this is just once a week an episode. And I can honestly tell you, it has really helped increase my business significantly in a short amount of time.
Wow. I think that, I mean, that's insane because truly it's pretty rare that you try out something new from a marketing perspective and you see immediate results. Honestly, like oftentimes things take a while, right? We're always planting seeds and we're waiting for them to come to fruition. But I mean, that's amazing. And also so motivating for you to keep going with it and to like, and honestly, to just like double down on it and go all in on it, because obviously this is working for you. So even if this was the only marketing tactic that you used, like, sweet, just simplifies your business.
Totally. And like I said earlier, I use the podcast for basically all my most of my social media posts will come from either the podcast episode itself. So like I'll maybe make a reel. Like I said, I don't love doing reels, but I know that they get out in front of so many people, but I actually use clips of the podcast as a reel. And so I can actually cut, like you mentioned, you can cut a little clip from either Descript, or I use Riverside to make my little clips and it shows me and the person I'm interviewing. And I put that as a reel and then I can use that. And so it just, in the things that I didn't feel really comfortable just coming on and being like, hi, it's Kim, I want to talk about this today. It's been really cool that you can use the podcast clips in so many different ways. So that's really been helpful. And again, I want to thank you because you were the one. I mean, for all of you guys that are listening, just so you know, I totally fangirled Krista before I began working with her. I listened to all of your podcast episodes. This was before you had Dietitian Success Center. You were doing just your
Dietitian
business
project. It was like, that was old school. Yeah.
And do you remember the episodes that you did where you were like, okay, I'm going to be doing a new thing this coming year and I'm going to walk you through how I'm doing my own like membership. I was so intrigued by those episodes and like the platforms that you used and how much you paid for the different things. For someone that has zero understanding of how to start a business or like knowing how to do any of these things, super helpful. So I just want you to know that. And again, it got me thinking about a podcast. So
yeah. Oh, that means so much to me. But also at the same time, I feel like I'm so inspired by you right now in terms of just like, I know, and one of my goals for 2023 is just going deeper with the podcast and like really doing the things. Cause right now I don't upload the videos to YouTube. I just don't, right? Like it just hasn't been part of my process. I haven't prioritized it. I'm not great at creating clips from the episodes and posting them on, like, I know that there's so much more potential with the podcast. I just haven't built it into my process yet. And so I am like obsessed with the information that you're sharing right now. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to fully implement this in 2023. So I so appreciate you sharing all of this detail for my own selfish reasons.
And I'm so glad that it's helpful because honestly, I feel like with YouTube, I'll be honest with you, I don't have that many followers or subscribers or anything on YouTube, but like, I'm just like you had always said from the beginning, just do something, try to be consistent. You don't need to do 10 platforms, but like, I felt like this was because it's so easy. I'm not doing it. I'm like, for example, you're on YouTube, have like informational, like videos, about marketing or different things for dietitians or entrepreneurs. Whereas I'm just literally uploading the podcast to YouTube. That is my channel. I do nothing else. I will do some shorts that I basically copy over from Instagram and TikTok. So that has gotten me some more viewers. But as of this moment, I don't even have a great following on YouTube, but I'm just trying to build it slowly and I'm just going to keep one thing a week on it, whatever. And we'll see what happens. So,
well, and that's so smart. And it's like, I feel like YouTube is like SEO in that it's when you put the effort in at the beginning, it's sort of just like, it's the snowball. Like, yes, you'll start off by having like 1 view and then you'll get 5 views and then you'll get 10 and then it'll grow. And the cool thing is you just uploaded the video once, and the longer it's on there, the more views you're going to get. It's just like the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
So it's so smart. And that's the thing too. You don't even have to have subscribers for people to be watching your content. Like there's still, you're getting views from people that are just searching for topics related to, you know, what you talk about in YouTube. Right. So it's so smart. I love that.
Do you want to hear the funny? You guys all laugh.
Yeah.
So, okay. This is the most viewed thing on YouTube thus far. Okay. So I made an Instagram reel last week on gas. Okay. Because this is a real problem that happens with bariatric clients. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So I make this post, I make this funny reel on gas and whatever, and it stinks or whatever. Ha funny.
Yeah.
These are the causes that can, foods and things that can trigger more gas.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't even know. I was like, I'll just put this on YouTube as a short, like I just did it. My typical thing, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, put those little things up there. Literally within a day, I got like almost 4,000 views on that. And that is the most that anyone, yes, 4,000 on gas. And I was like,
oh my God. Oh, that's so funny.
And then all of a sudden people were watching my podcast.
Cool.
So I saw the numbers then on my episodes go up on YouTube because they saw the short and they're like, who's this lady talking about gas for bariatrics? And went over and watched the podcast. So you never know what's going to get
so
people
smart.
To look at your stuff. You don't know.
That's so cool. Have you ever tried using any of the YouTube SEO tools like vidIQ, or there's another one? I can't remember what it's called. I can't remember. The one I used to use is vidIQ. Okay. You should totally check it out because it's like, so it's a YouTube specific SEO tool, which means that if you type in a term, it will basically tell you what are the related keywords or phrases that people are actually searching on YouTube related to that topic. So you can use that information to create your episode titles or to create your YouTube titles, because then you know you're matching up with what people are actually searching for. And it could just be as simple as kind of making a small tweak in the language you use. And suddenly it's way more discoverable because for whatever reason, that's the language people are using. So honestly, check that out. It's just like a little plugin you can add to your YouTube. You do have to pay for it. I can't remember how much it costs, but it's a plugin you add to your YouTube. And then, you just type in the term and it'll just pull up a list of what people are searching for and like how competitive it is and all of this stuff. So
I need
totally
that.
Check that
out. What
out.
Was the name of it again?
vidIQ.
vidIQ. Okay. I'm making it up literally.
And there's another one actually. I think it's called TubeBuddy. TUBE, like YouTube Buddy. I don't know. Compare the two. I used to use vidIQ and I thought that it was great.
I'm literally taking notes as we're talking.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much. I appreciate that. That's helpful.
No problem. Yeah, for sure. Okay. So we've obviously talked about the podcast and how the podcast has clearly worked for you. Is there anything else that you feel like has worked for you? So this is a two-part question. Is there anything else that you feel like has worked for you from a marketing perspective? And is there anything that you were like, I tried this and it did not work for me in terms of actually getting clients?
Yeah. So, what worked for me is the good old standard being consistent with one medium. And so, which was, I think your advice right out of the gate, like just pick one thing, Kim, don't get overwhelmed, just do something. And I was like, okay. And so I have found Instagram is kind of where a lot of my clientele is, where I have a lot of my niche market. So Instagram, creating the reels, as much as I don't love them, they get me in front of a lot of folks, and it's gotten a lot more engagement now that I have, I think more. I honestly, I think too that the podcast makes you like legitimate. Like, I don't know if that sounds
so true. Oh my God.
But yeah, like all of a sudden,
for sure. Yeah.
I don't know. Do you feel like, I don't know.
Totally.
Truthfully, people are like, I've listened to all your podcast episodes. Now I want to work with you. And I'm like, oh,
totally.
So that is legitimized. It's like my business almost, so to speak. So that obviously utilizing that on my Instagram has again increased my engagement and numbers and things like that. What hasn't worked for me thus far though, honestly, I haven't gotten a lot of traction on TikTok. And I think per my kid, he's like, Mom, please don't ever post another TikTok on gas. Like I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh my God, hilarious.
My 13-year-old was like dying because guess what? 13-year-olds are on TikTok. Okay.
Yeah. And just like, Mom, you're so embarrassing.
You're so cringy. Yeah. But I just haven't, I don't know if I'm just not yet getting in front of my niche, because I know there's a lot of folks on there, and I don't know if just like my topic or my content isn't resonating with that group, you know what I mean, on TikTok. I don't know. But
Yeah.
TikTok hasn't really worked for me. I have a Facebook group page. It's been okay. I definitely have gotten more people to join it, but like I was envisioning more of like people posting questions and like there being like conversation, and I'll post questions in there and it's just like crickets.
Crickets.
So,
Yeah. Yep.
like, okay. So, cause I see a lot of dietitians that have these really great, successful Facebook groups, and it just has not at this moment, it hasn't clicked for me yet. And then I'll just lastly say, just analysis paralysis and going inside yourself and not everyone needs a break for sure, but like going on a complete hiatus for several months because you're just trying to like get some courage or like feel good about yourself. That really, I had some momentum going at the beginning of my business, but then I got kind of freaked out and kind of took a break. And guess what? I had to like start all over again. And so when I came back onto the platform and started kind of posting a little more consistently, like in September and in October, again, I started almost like from scratch because it was like, oh yeah, oh, are you back? Like, oh,
yeah,
your business is back. Hi.
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that did not work for me. So again, I know that life happens and sometimes we take breaks, but it set me back, I think, a little bit. So that wasn't great. So
Yeah. Cool. That's really helpful. And I just want to go back to what you said around this whole idea that, you know, people have been probably following you on Instagram and watching your reels. And it was only at the point where they listened to your podcast episodes that they were like, okay, yeah, now I'm ready. And I just think that there is nothing like long form video / audio content that builds trust, right?
Yes.
Like that is what builds trust, is for you to be able to, and I know it's nerve wracking, right? Because all of these feelings of imposter syndrome come up. It's like, am I really an expert in this? I don't know, right? What if I say the wrong thing? Like it's a whole thing. And trust me, for those that are listening, everybody, regardless of where they're at in their career, feels that same way.
Totally.
But there's nothing like that for trust building. It's like, it just gives somebody a real opportunity to see what you can do.
Yep.
Like really, it's so cool.
And like, I think like you've said before, guess what? In the beginning, if you screw up, nobody's listening to you. And he's like,
I know, it's so true.
It's so true because now that I've been going along, granted, a lot of folks now have gone back and listened to my first episode where I had tons of ums and ahs, and you know what? They didn't care. It's still like literally my most listened to episode is the #1. And I was like, I thought I was awful. I was like, babe, I don't know if this is going to work. To my husband, I'm like, I sucked. Like I talked about something so basic that I thought was so just like not helpful as a dietitian. Like I didn't even get into like macros or like calories or talking about protein grams. Like I basically just talked about the comparison of bariatric nutrition and sports nutrition and like where I want to take this podcast. And people were like, oh my gosh, I love your podcast. And I was like, what?
Yeah, so totally.
You just don't know like what folks are going to be into. Like, just don't. And you don't know until you try. So
yes, so true. I haven't even gone back and listened to my first episode. Like I just let it be.
Let it roll.
I don't want to go back and listen to it because I know it's going to be just so cringe, but I'm like, whatever. It needs to be there. It needs to be living proof of how you can improve over time. And even now I'm like, I just even know that there's so much growth that can be done within this podcast episode or within this podcast and me as a podcaster, but it's just like, you just got to be okay with it. You got to be okay with they always say like, be okay with the shitty first draft. And that's exactly what it is. Like, it's it's a crappy first draft and you just got to put it out there into the world and allow yourself to get better.
Yeah.
Cause you
and
will.
I had like total, like a very strict script. The first episode I was reading
so it was like really robotic. Yeah.
Really robotic. Like my husband was like, babe, like
Been
when
there.
I can tell, when I can tell that you're like being normal Kim and not like just reading the script was when you actually told a story about someone and I could tell you weren't reading the script. It sounded so much more natural. Do that more.
So
and I
true.
was like,
yes,
but I have to say these certain
exactly
things.
What I need. Yeah.
And it was like, once I kind of let go of like, look, I have my points and if I forget something, guess what? I'll just say it next week. Or
totally.
Or put an Instagram post up and go, I wanted to clarify this for my podcast. Whatever.
For sure.
Who cares?
Who
cares? Do it.
Yes, totally. Agreed. Well, what is one piece of advice that you would give to brand new business owners or those who are looking to start a private practice?
So number one, I would just say, take the leap and go in on yourself. I I didn't realize that, like, I think I was like, I'm serious when I say this. I think I was experiencing some depression in the last like
Mm,
2 years of my work. And it wasn't because I didn't love who I worked with and like my
yeah.
coworkers, and the place I worked was right down the road from my house. I just knew that it wasn't like, I'm kind of that person that like, I have a game plan for like my life. And I was like,
Hmm.
this isn't it. And I don't know
Mm,
what to do. And I was really second guessing, like, do I even want to be a dietitian? Like, what am I doing? And my husband was like, okay, look, let's start saving some money. Let's figure out a way where you can either go on your own part time or start a side gig or just take the jump. And honestly, like I said at the beginning, I had zero understanding, training, really even interest in business marketing, knowing what the heck to do. And I think that too then overwhelmed me. And I was like, I can't do this, babe. I cannot do this. I don't know anything. And it was scary. And so my advice would just be, the information is out there. Okay. If you have questions, find someone that can help you. Like I hired Krista. I hired you because I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Can you please help me? And we had so many conversations where I was like, please help. I need you literally to show me how to cut a picture from the internet and put it on Canva. Like, I don't even know how to do that. Okay. So you can find help. They're out there. Okay. And then I would just say, like, find something that's going to be fulfilling for you. Like, I remember thinking about, like, obviously I kind of knew who I wanted to work with because I had been doing bariatrics for a while and I love sports nutrition. And I knew that there was like a void out there combining these two areas. And so I kind of lucked out in the fact that I already had experience in both areas. I've been a dietitian for almost 16 years now, and I could utilize both of those areas and really answer a problem that was out there. And so use your skills and the things that you like and enjoy, and give it a shot. Because as you told me right out of the gate, Krista, if you remember when we talked about niching, you were like, Kim, you can change. And I was like, wait, what? You mean I can make a change down the road? Like I don't have to stick with the first draft? And you were like, no, you just give it a shot. If it doesn't resonate, doesn't feel good, we can always tweak it and you can target like a different audience. And I was like, oh, okay. Cause I don't know if this is going to work. And you were like, let's just try it. And so I guess my other advice would just be, get out there, try it. It can always be changed, and believe in yourself, go in on yourself, because guess what? You're amazing. And all the experiences and the steps that have gotten to you where you are today are going to help you in this venture if you decide to be an entrepreneur, because all those little skills will help you. So do it. That's my advice. Do
mm.
it. Take that leap.
So awesome. So helpful. And so I'd also love to know what is next for your business.
So I don't have an email list. Like, oh my gosh, isn't that like one of the first things you're supposed
Sue
to do?
me.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I've gone out of order. I want to create an email list because I have learned in lots of different marketing things that an email list is so helpful, because you don't own social media. You don't own your Instagram. At any time it can go down. So I'm going to create an email list so I can start doing some more email marketing. And I do want to create a new offer, because right now I have two offers that are basically one-to-one only. I'd like to have a kind of more of a moderate priced offer where it's maybe a small group setting. And I really want to create a digital course this year. And then in the long term, my vision for my business is to have a membership where I have a community of active bariatric clients that we can share wins, we can share what works, what doesn't work, resources. I'd like to bring other professionals onto the platform as well to have like strength training videos, mental health support groups, things like that. I kind of have this big vision. But again, like the podcast, I have no idea how to create a membership. So that's kind of something that I'll be looking into. But I think,
You'll figure it
right,
out.
yeah, I'll figure it out one way or the other, or have you help me. And I think though, I'd like to get the email list going and at least get like a small group or digital course going in the kind of near future.
So cool. I would love for you to get an email list going as well.
Yes, I think that's important.
Then that can be your call to action from each of your podcast episodes, right?
Yeah.
As you're channeling somebody somewhere to your
Totally.
freebie. And then at least you can hang on to these people.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
so many opportunities, so many exciting opportunities.
Yeah, it's
I'm pumped for you.
exciting. And
Yeah.
thank you. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to be on here today talking to you, because I can honestly tell you guys that I was in a bad place a few months ago, meaning like I literally was like, what have I done? And so just, you never know how things can change in your business. You just don't. And
Yeah.
I literally had 2 clients in my business for like 7 months, 2 people. That's the only income I had. Okay. So I
Yeah.
had like 0, and just trying to tick away and do these little things. So hang in there is what I can say to you.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, such a great note to end off on. Where can the audience find out more about you?
yeah. So I'm on Instagram. My Instagram handle is at Active Bariatric. I am on TikTok, Active Bariatric Nutrition. I'm on Facebook. You can just look up Active Bariatric Nutrition. And then YouTube, I have a YouTube channel, Active Bariatric Nutrition, where they can watch the podcast episodes, the full video. And then my website is www.activebariatricnutrition.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you. I appreciate it.